Hey, everybody. Hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is derive. Derive. In other words, where do all these things originate? You see that picture of the cross there? That should be the reminder that everything that we have, everything that we know, derives from Christ. Now, the problem that Paul was having as he's writing to the church at Colossae, I mean, you think about a Gentile church. Why would they be going back? They didn't come by way of Judaism, so why would there be those that would try to get them to kind of go back to that path? So, he's fighting a few things. And you're going to see today, we're going to talk about really four things that he's addressing here, as many commentators will tell you, four different man made um, concoctions, let's put it that way, of how to be more spiritual. Now, I mean, you think about it, it is very tempting for us all to desire to be more spiritual, and we should be, but we need to do it God's way, the ways that originate with Christ, not man-made things. And so that's part of what he's really combating. And yesterday, as we were talking about, that preeminence of Christ, right? That he is the head, he is um, distinct from all things and from anyone. He is distinct and set apart, and above, and we should be set apart as well, and we should look like it. But today, if you look here in chapter 2, Colossians chapter 2, you're going to look at just verses 16 through 19 today. So let no one judge you in food or in drink, or regarding a festival or a new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the increase that is from God. Now, even earlier in this chapter, he has told them, be careful that you're not so easily pulled away, that you're not believing these lies and things that will be told. I'm telling you, I really honestly believe in all that we've seen this week and just the way the Lord has tied all these things together. You think about the heresy that we were talking about this past Sunday and how that has come up over and over again this week in what we've been looking at. I believe God is trying to get our attention, and I pray that you are paying attention. I pray that I'm paying attention as well. There's really four things that most commentators will say that Paul was having to deal with and that we still have to deal with today. Those four things are this: it's the Gnosticism, right? This is the whole philosophy thing. This is the higher knowledge that basically the more you know, the smarter you are, the more you think about all these things, then the more spiritual you're going to be. The second is the legalism, right? That the more you follow the strict guidelines and rules, and the more you're a rule follower, kind of like the Pharisees, right? The more you try to dig in and do the legalistic route, and that you follow these man-made. Let me reiterate that: the man-made guidelines, then you'll be more spiritual or more holy. The other two things that specifically you see even here in this chapter are the first would the I'm sorry, the third thing that we're talking about here would be mysticism. And this is kind of that where you hear that worship of angels and things that haven't been seen. And it's almost as if, this idea that you've got to hear voices and you've got to see visions, and that is a sign that you are more spiritual. Let's not forget, as we talk about these things, that Satan loves to imitate everything that God does, but it's always with a twist, right? Even when Satan was trying to tempt Jesus, he was quoting scripture at him but taking it out of context. So let's make sure that we're paying attention, right? The worship of angels. Now, let's just, even if you just think about that, and even what is going on, man, we've been hitting everybody this week with the sermon and the videos, but Catholicism. right? How much do they put on having to go through a priest to get to Jesus? That's above what is in Scripture. How much do they look at the saints? And it's not just Catholicism, but others like them. That right, it's so much more they put on the this saint or that saint, and that we've got to pray to them and use them to give us favor. And I'm gonna have this charm for this one and that one, and this is what's going to get me to be more spiritual, and it's going to get me in closer relationship with God. It's going above and beyond what Scripture says. And the last thing would be asceticism. And this would be like the easiest way to say it would be like living like a monk, right? To say, okay, well, look, I'm going to go in and I'd even just self mutilation, trying to have this extreme self discipline to say, I'm just going to be abstinent from everything. I love how one commentator put it, says, look, I could just, you're going to find out you try to be a monk and go into a monastery to get away from the world, and you're going to get in there and find out that you took the world in there with you. We can't escape our fleshly desires. But see, all of these things, and man, I really wish we had more time to dive into these things here. But he says all those man-made things, and even the things that were in the Old Testament, even those things that were leading up, right? The meals and the Sabbaths and the festivals. I love that he says those were the things that were a shadow of what was to come, but Christ is the substance. I love how one commentator put it, and I'll put this up there. The New Age then is not the extension of Judaism. Rather, Judaism was a mere shadow of the present age projected into the past. Think about that. It's almost like having Christ here. And we always, we kind of think of, sometimes we're not careful. We think about the Old Testament law being the light that was shining, to the shadow that is Christ. But it's the other way around. Christ is the light. He is the center of all things. And if that light is shining backwards, right, you get the shadow in the past. That's everything that was in the past. Judaism was showing us what the real central theme of it all is, and that is Christ. All things derive from him. So you say, well, okay, why do we talk about all these other things? Because they derive from man. They come from man. They are man-made. They would take things like fasting and say, okay, well, if you fast, you can kind of twist the arm of God. That's not the point of fasting. You're right. You can look through these and say, well, look, what's wrong with having, a self-disciplined life to say, I'm going to refrain from doing this or refrain from doing that. All of those things in and of themselves are fine. And they're not that they're bad practices. Right? It'd be fine if you say, hey, I'm going to completely stay off my phone for a week. I'm going to, avoid eating too much or eating at all for however long it will be. I'm going to fast, but not with the point or the intention of saying, I'm going to do this. And because of that, I will be more spiritual and God will have to bless me accordingly. It's trying to twist the arm of God. That's why in this passage he said, you're going to lose your prize. You're in risk. You're at risk. And he's talking to genuine believers. He says you're at risk of missing out on the prize. Not salvation, but we could talk a lot about this. If he's talking to genuine believers, if he's talking about them missing out on the prize, he is talking about the eternal rewards, not eternity in heaven, but the eternal rewards they will miss out because they have spent so much time working for themselves, missing what God had in store for them from the beginning. So today, just leave you with this. Are the things that you're following, the things that you're doing, the things that you're, trying to do to be more spiritual? I would just ask you this. Do they derive from you or do they derive from God? God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.